So my name is Joshua, and this is the Power Recovery YouTube channel. And today we are joined by Jairek Robbins, who's a business and performance coach. And for people who don't know who you are, Jairek, yet, could you just tell us a brief synopsis of yourself and what it is you like to do for your mission?
Sure. I mean, to put it simple, I'm one of the top performance coaches on earth. I get to work with everyone from the special operations of the U.S. Air Force to the Army, the Marines, top executives, business owners, people who are striving for peak performance in their life for business usually reach out to me. There's a couple of us. I'm in the top probably 3 or 4 on earth in this category. And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to work with these people and figuring out how do we help them fine tune mentally, emotionally, physically. How do we help adjust their strategy and get that little bit extra more out of whatever it is they're doing, whether they're running a team, running an organization, whether they're fundraising a few $100 million for their startup. It's just, what is the 2 millimeters that's going to make a little bit of difference that gives them the edge in what they're doing in life and business. And so it's an honor. I get to work with some of the best people on earth at what they do and help them figure out, how do we get that extra 2 millimeters to give them the edge over their competition.
Pretty amazing, yeah. So it's a very quite eclectic group of people you're working for that are on that kind of in that kind of 1% possibly in the world of like the top operations people like you mentioned. So I came across your work, Jared, actually quite interestingly about, I think it was 2012, 2013. I had actually come across, it was when I just did or just started my bachelor's degree, and I had come across, I think it was your TED talk. And I think it was a simple formula for inspiring the world to live the life of their dreams. I think it was off the top of my head. Yeah. And I remember watching that, and you use a kind of a phrase in it of learn it, live it, and then give it. And I really thought that was a very interesting, very like brings down everything to its simplest foundation, really. And then I had come across an interview with you with Mark Divine. I know you mentioned about special operations, and from that interview, I read The Way of the Seal, and that was actually one of the first books I read as an adult. I never really read before. I have learning difficulties, and I've never really felt the need to read or anything. I really struggle reading, so that was a big insight. So thank you very much for that interview, because it really helped me start my reading journey. So, Jared, in terms of yourself and your own development. I know from that TED talk you said about inspiring the world. What inspires you in 2023?
Lots of stuff. I love stories of perseverance. I love hearing people who've lived real life. We were just down in Cape Town for 5 weeks, and I met a gentleman named Freddie. And I just looked at him, and my wife, we were meeting people and asking like, oh, what are you up to? Where you're from? Did you grow up here? Stuff like that. And he was a waiter at a restaurant. And when we asked him where he was from, there was a sparkle in his eye. I saw just something you see in someone's eye when you know they've really lived. They've really been through some stuff in life. And there was a kindness, there was a warmth to it. And I feel like that warmth comes from people who've kind of been dragged through the ugh of life. And so I never forget, I looked at this guy's eyes and I was like, there's more to him. And I said, this is going to sound random for someone sitting at a table in your restaurant, but can I interview you? And he said, I mean, sure, like for a job. And I was like, no, for my podcast. And he looked at me and he's like, okay, is that like a radio show? I was like, kind of. And so he came out, and I'll tell you something really funny. He came out and met us for lunch a few days later, and we set up a podcast, little mini studio outside in a park. And he told us, he actually told my wife, he goes, my wife is worried I'm going to get kidnapped or something. He like, and we started laughing. We said, kidnapped by who? And he's like, you guys, you're just inviting me randomly out to a park. And so we sat down, and I was like, give me the scoop. Where are you from? What does the world need more of? And he started sharing, the world needs more people, love, joy, and I think it's peace. And he linked how those things link together. And then I said, tell us about you. Tell us about your journey. And he had shared with me, he grew up in the Congo, And then when war was happening, men were being recruited into the army, and he didn't want to end up in the army fighting in that place. So he literally migrated himself individually. He left and he went to Zambia, then Zimbabwe, and then eventually found his way to South Africa. And in South Africa, he had this amazing journey where he was working as some labor and construction, and then this guy didn't pay him ever, and then he ended up getting kicked out and living on the streets, and then eventually he found a job and a place to live. And then he shared how he started at this restaurant. He started as a runner and then became a waiter and then became the head waiter, then the head of all waiters. And he's moved his way up and has this incredible leadership position in the restaurant now. And moments like that inspire me because you hear a story of someone who's really lived life. Like they've been through it. They've had to pack up everything they own in a single backpack and move to a place that they don't know anybody and find a way to build a life that they dream of. They've then, called back for his wife and child and moved them down to South Africa to give them a great life. They're willing to do what it takes to show up and master a skill set and work hard at learning how to become better each and every day until they literally become the leader of the organization that they're a part of. And so people like Freddie inspire me. And he's not the only one. I've done 90 interviews of different people on our podcast, sharing the real life, raw story of how they've lived through it. And so people who are living through the trials, tribulations, the ups and downs, the twists and turns, the unexpected moments are the ones who really inspire me.
Love that, Jairek. Yeah, it's very inspiring. In terms of that, I noticed I was looking at you with like your book. You mentioned about all the stuff you do in terms of like volunteering and stuff like this, and it seems like you have a very adventurous lifestyle and you love people, and that's amazing. That interview that you just mentioned. In terms of, I know I actually saw your most recent interview and I thought it was brilliant. Like something I have noticed from your style of interviewing is you're a very good question master. You ask very philosophical and very deep questions, and so yeah, that's amazing with that gentleman. So in terms of with your own journey, then Jared, what's something I kind of I suppose like a hard lesson, a life lesson that you learned the hard way? What would you say that would be in terms of your personal journey?
Sure. I've learned a lot of hard lessons. I mean, those are the best lessons, the ones that challenge you, the ones that humble you, the ones that make you look at life different on the other side of them. I think one of the biggest ones that was a pivotal, life-changing moment was probably when I had malaria a couple times and was told I had 6 days left to live. And it was one of those moments where I stood where I was and looked at the life I had in front of me and said, shoot, if I only had 6 days left, what are all the things I would have felt like I really missed? The things I dreamed of doing that I never had a chance to. What are the things I wanted to build or create or be a part of? Who are the people that mattered most to me? And it's like one of those movie situations where it just flashes before your eyes and you look around and go, wow, whew, have I been focused on the things that actually matter? Have I been spending my time with the people that are most important to me? Have I been creating memories that those are the things that really last? You don't get to keep any of this stuff when you die. I mean, even a pharaoh, like they bury you in the pyramid with all your stuff, but you die. You don't get any of it. It just sits there until someone else finds it and takes it to a museum. Like same. You don't get to keep any of your stuff, but the memories, those last forever in the minds of the people you really care about. And so when I sat down and I started thinking about it, I was trying to answer the question, I guess, what's most important in life? And for those of you watching, I don't know if you've ever asked yourself that question. What's most important to you in life? Who are the most important people? What are the most important projects? Maybe what are the most important places you love to go to? And then the second question, in that moment when you only have so many days left, you kind of look at how you chose to use your time. Did you use your time in a way where you actually were getting the most out of it? Or did you let time slip by, getting distracted by the noise in life? What's going on TV? What are politics fighting over? Who said what? The distractions, the stuff that's not the stuff you actually care about, but just stuff that distracts you from actually doing the things you want to do. And I remember in that moment thinking, wow, if I could live past day 6, I got to write down a list of all the things I'm going to do. And I'm going to live full force into that list and find a way to make that list happen now. Because I had a crazy moment where I might not have another day. Luckily, it's been, almost 20 years since then. So I've lived past the 6th day. I know a few of you were holding your breath, wondering if I made it or not. Ugh, I hate to break it. I made it. It's okay. You can breathe again. But the thought of, if you took time, and again, if you're watching this, when's the last time you took out a pen and paper? I'll give you a quick exercise, and you actually wrote down what is most important to me in life. And you put it in order. People don't like to have to choose. They're like, it's all important. Choose. Is your health more important or your relationship? Is your family more important or your spouse? Is the work project you have more important, or is getting high quality sleep every night? You got to choose what is most important to you in life. Now, go grab your calendar. How you plan your week. Add it up. How much time are you spending on the things that are actually most important to you? Now, for most people, it's not a lot of time. They look at their whole week and they're like, well, I got to work. And I got to work out and be healthy. And then I got to eat. Well, what's left after that? Got the kids to take care of. Then you have, 10 minutes a day to do something you love? No wonder you feel dead inside. That ain't going to work. So it's sitting down and saying, okay, what am I willing to change to start actually living the life I really want? What am I willing to change? Are you willing to stop telling yourself the story that it's not possible? It's kind of the first change. If you keep telling yourself the story, well, yeah, it's good for you, but that doesn't work for me. You don't understand where I'm from. I don't have a dad like yours. I didn't grow up in the family. I didn't get that. I get it. There's a story. But write this down. The only thing keeping you from what you want is the story you keep telling yourself about why you can't have it. That's it. If you change your story, you change your life. People like me don't do stuff like that. Change it. Change your story. So you know what? Maybe most people like me don't, but I do. Maybe the majority of my family, there's only 3 or 4 people in my family that kind of do all the things they want to do. The rest of them are normal, everyday people. Big hearts, super caring, kind, generous, amazing humans. But they're just stuck doing what everyone else does. A few of us that decided, I'm going to do what I want to do. We broke the mold. We changed the trajectory of life for our family. We stepped out into the land of everyone calling us crazy and just went for it. And it's neat. In the beginning, they call you crazy because they're worried about you. Over time, they wish you well, but kind of hope it doesn't end in a disaster. And at some point, they look at you and go, that's really inspiring. How the heck did you do that? Can you help me do it? That's what happens over time. And there's a way to get there. The way to get there is realizing in the beginning, whatever you go after, whether your dream is to sing like Taylor Swift and fill these stadiums, or your dream is to build a booming business, or your dream is to travel the world, whatever it is. In the beginning, I'll warn you, you're going to be horrible. Unless you're skilled, like born skilled, which a few people are, but most people aren't, you're just going to be horrible at it. And the way to get great is to just be willing to be horrible at it long enough until you start to get good at it. And be good at it long enough that you become great at it. And be great at it long enough that maybe if you keep trying, you'll become one of the best in the world. Along the way, you probably want to hire a coach, someone that can observe what you're doing and help you make the little adjustments to be that much better. That's all you're looking for. Little 2 millimeter shifts that make all the difference. Difference between winning and losing in a sprint in the Olympics is like 0.00 something seconds. Winning and losing in all these sports. And people say, well, life isn't a sport. And you go, well, that's great. Winning and losing in your business, winning and losing that promotion, winning and losing that opportunity to get the job, either you or them, all it takes is 0.00 something percent difference of why you stand out a little bit more. And I guarantee that happens psychologically first, physically second, and then emotionally. You have to know how to fine tune all three parts to get that little bit of edge.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing, Jairek. Yeah, I love that answer. I know in terms of, you mentioned a few different things as saying like life as a sport. Is that a metaphor for you as well? Would you consider it a sport?
No, I think life is a glorious adventure.
I noticed that actually from your from the back of your book, you mentioned a lot about adventure and stuff like that. It seems like a very prime thing for you, so that's really cool. I wondered in terms of like with your own development, Jairek, as well. You mentioned working with coaches. That's something that I actually did like for the first time this past year, and like such a big difference. Like you said about the little 2 millimeter changes. I highly recommend anyone working with a coach. It's just so beneficial. I did wonder in terms of if we think about just personal development for a second, um, is there a part of yourself that you really have learned to accept now within yourself that previously, say 10 years ago, you found extremely difficult to accept?
I'd spin that a little. Self-acceptance versus being willing to identify what isn't working and stubborn enough to stick with it until it does. And if I look at parts of my life or parts of our business, there were things that I know I should do, and I'd get close to doing it and then be like, I just don't like that. Oh, I could do it a different way. Oh, I know enough. I don't need anybody else. It was that pattern of moving towards what I wanted to do and then no. And what's interesting, I remember I was talking to my coach in business, and we looked at the business. People got it. This got it, that got it, this got it. They're like, if everything's so great in your business, why aren't you at the place you wanted to be this year? And I'm like, well, we're there. We're just not exceeding it. We're hitting it, but not exceeding again, which is frustrating because I want to exceed the goal, not just hit the goal. And he's like, I know. What's the stuck point? What's the difference? What's the block? And I circled it. I'm like, this one piece right here is the block. And he goes, I know. I see it too. And he's like, what are you doing about it? And I said, you know what? I think here's the truth. I just need to get stubborn and persistent and just keep hammering at it until it finally knocks loose and it takes off. I was like, that's it. And he laughed. He said, I agree. Most people aren't brave enough to look at the thing, the stuck point, the one thing, the linchpin, the thing, the cornerstone, you could call it. It's the thing that holds everything together, that if you knock that one thing loose, everything takes off in the right direction. And so I looked at that and I hunted. What is the linchpin? What's the cornerstone? What is the one thing holding all this together that if I can knock that one piece loose, it unleashes a whole nother level of growth and opportunity. And I hunt for it. And in my business, I hunt for it. In my health, I hunt for it. Sleep optimization, I hunt for it. In my relationship, what's one thing I could do each day that would catapult, exponentially increase the amount of love and passion and joy my wife and I share together? What's that one thing that would make all the difference? And if you can find it and you can make that adjustment, exponential growth and opportunity opens up to you.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, so it's always kind of looking and being honest with what is the block. I like the way you mentioned as well that you don't want to just hit the goal; you want to try and surpass the goal, which is really cool.
Performance coaching. This isn't average human coaching. Come on, we'll do what average people do. We'll miss the goal and celebrate it. We'll hit it. So one of my clients told me this morning, they're like, if you reward people for doing what they're supposed to do, he's like, the only time you get a reward is when you exceed what you're supposed to do. I'm like, man, most people nowadays don't even want to have to do it and somehow still get rewarded. I'm like, that's rough. And then the ones who just do what they're supposed to do, win the game, then they expect big rewards. Say, well, you just won, big deal. Versus doing an exceptional job, going far beyond what was imagined or what was the goal that was set. If you reset your standard, and my dad told me this actually, he said this phrase, I demand more from myself than anyone would ever expect of me. That phrase, to demand more from yourself, not your team, not other people, to demand more from yourself than anyone would ever expect of you. To find a way to go above and beyond what you know you're capable of. To push yourself to find that extra little 2 millimeters and watch what happens. It unlocks an insane level, exponential level of growth and opportunity in your life and business.
Wow, that's an amazing statement. Yeah. So in terms of going that extra mile, you were saying then, Joe, is there anything that you kind of fall back on? Do you know, when you're really trying to push through the crushing points, everything's, becoming very mundane or it's becoming extremely difficult? Is there anything that you think about? Is it a quote or a story, person that really helps you push through?
I'll catch something because an extra mile is a really long distance. I guarantee it doesn't take an extra mile. It takes an extra 2 millimeters. I was talking to a group of business professionals, and I said, I'm going to simplify how to really, really dominate in this industry. And it's going to sound so ridiculously simple. A lot of you are going to roll your eyes and say, thanks, genius. But I'm going to tell you the truth. Find out what works. Number 1. 2, be willing to do it more than anyone else on earth is willing to do. And I said, how many of you rolled your eyes and said, okay, genius? And they all laughed and raised their hand. I said, I know it sounds simple, but think about it. Find out what works, number 1. Figure out what works. Number 2, be willing. Willpower. Not, okay, fine, I'm willing to do it. Willpower. I use my will. I will myself to do this more than anyone else on earth is willing to do. You become the best in the world at anything if you do that. Find out what works and be willing. Use your willpower to will yourself to do it each and every day. Now, you asked me a question. What happens when it's tough? What happens when you don't feel like it? What happens when you're tired? What happens when you're exhausted? This is where you have to train unconscious patterns of behavior into your nervous system, because when you're exhausted, you're going to fall to the level of your training. Meaning how you've trained yourself repetitively over and over and over again is what you're going to settle for when you're completely drained and exhausted. And so what that looks like for most people is setting up daily rhythms of activity that build in the right patterns so that under the stressful circumstance, that's where you drop down to. That becomes your standard. I remember when my wife was having a baby, I heard, now, women are not going to like this one, but I've heard it's strenuous for fathers as well. There's all kinds of memes around this, but I've heard it's stressful because it's a new stage. Your identity changes. There's a new human to take care of. There's new levels of responsibility. There's the physical and emotional and all the challenges the mom goes through in birthing and having the baby. And then as a father, it's stepping in and figuring out how to support on, there's a lack of sleep and tons of emotions and tons of hormones and everything in the man and the woman and everybody. And it's an experience to go through. And so my wife and I said, let's train for this like it's a marathon. So every night for 18 months, we would, before we went to bed, do 30 minutes of breath work together. not Lamaze, just breath work, training our nervous system to be centered and calm. Now, what happened was on the day my son was born, I caught him when he came out. It was part of the contract here in Puerto Rico with the doctor we had at our house is the father catches the child. So I caught my son and I felt more calm than I've ever felt in my entire life. Now, rewind. As a kid, if I saw blood, I would pass out and throw up. If you ever had a natural birth, there's a lot of blood. I was more calm, more centered, and more focused in my entire life. But what we did to get there was my wife and I spent 18 months of training once a day on breath work, and we would train together at night. I would train every morning on my own. So I was training twice a day for 18 months for a specific moment that I would be insanely calm and centered for. That's like, wow, that level of training for just a moment. Usain Bolt said, I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds in my life. Trained 4 years for one 9-second sprint. What are you training for? What are you training for? And who gives you feedback? Because if you do really, really crappy training, when it comes down to the moment, you're not going to be ready. Who do you have as your coach that helps you give that little feedback that goes, ooh, nope, do it again. Change this, do it again, change this, do it again, change. There you go. Now you got it. Who's giving you that micro feedback to make sure you stay on track? And I think there's 2 ways to do that. One, you could hire a coach, or 2, you could go get certified as a coach and learn the life skills yourself so that you use them on yourself all the time. There's self-coaching or, hiring a coach. My thought, the best investment every person will ever make is to get certified as a coach, a performance coach, so that you learn the skills so you can psychologically apply them on yourself every moment of every day and constantly be fine-tuning.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible that you prepared that long, Jared, for that one moment. And you're saying then about being in that
Now,
state.
you're saying that about me, but every woman who watches this is going to roll her eyes and go, you prepared to catch the child? What about Mama Bear? She made the kid for 18 months in her belly or 9 months in her belly and then birthed him? Come on. And what I'm proud to say is my wife trained just as hard as I did. And that's something I love about her. She has the same crazy intensity and standard that I do. She loves to train and prepare for stuff. She holds herself to an insanely high standard in everything she does. So it's fun to have someone to share life with that also is into this stuff.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, Jared, that you have, like you mentioned then about your wife. It sounds like you're very much on the same page. And like you said then about preparing together, it's pretty amazing. And I love that you said that, you will kind of default to your level of training in the moments of pressure and stress. So it's always better to have that level of preparedness in advance. Just as a closing message then, Jared, before we wrap it up, I know on some of your interviews you use the question of what does the world need more of? And just in your opinion, what do you think the world needs more of?
Really simply, I think the world needs more people who are skilled and tooled in how to powerfully communicate with other people, how to ask powerful questions, how to help lead them to their best self, how to help elevate them. After every group that we put through our Performance Coach University training program, I always ask them, how many people think if your parents had these skills, your childhood would have been exponentially better? Everyone raised their hand. I said, how many believe that your doctors, your police officers, your fire people, your teachers, how many people believe if those people had these skills, the entire community would be in a better place? Everyone raised their hand. And I was like, then please help me. Help me go recruit these humans and bring them over here so we can share these tools to not only help them better their own life, but to help the entire community rise together. And I was like, we live in a wild time where there's intense youth suicide rates. There's crazy tension going on all over the world. And I'm like, we need to tool up more people with the skills to better communicate and to help ignite the possibility, help ignite that fire of potential in other people around them and help all of us rise together. So I don't know if you're listening and you have an interest and you care about people, have a big heart and want to make a difference in your own life and difference in the lives of others. If it's okay, I would just send them to performancecoachuniversity.com, tell them to apply, and we'll see if it's a good fit.
Awesome, Jared. I really enjoyed that interview, and I'll definitely link in the description box below the link to your university as well. It sounds very interesting. Absolute pleasure speaking to you, Jairek. I'm going to wrap it up now. The last thing I was going to say, just kind of borrowing some of your words off your interview, is there anything I can do to help your company with your mission?
I mean, just throw the links, throw Performance Coach University in the links here, throw JarekRobbins.com. If you're a small business owner or someone looking to increase your personal performance, just go to JarekRobbins.com. Our main newsletter opt-in, just pick if you want help on health, relationships, career, and wealth building, or if you want help, building a better business, click which one, and I'll send you a handful of free trainings on exactly what you can do to start building momentum to improve your performance in either of those categories.
Awesome, Jared. Really enjoyed that, brother. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. I'll speak to you soon, Jairek. I'll make sure to include all them links. By all means, check out Jairek's website. He's one of the top coaches in the world in regards to performance, so please check him out. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon, Jairek. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.